So I constantly ask myself, do I trust science? I watch a lot of informational, educational videos. I read a lot of books. I do a lot of these type of things because I like to be informed. I really do. I love to be informed. I like to know what I'm talking about, and more specifically, I prefer not to be ignorant, at least not completely ignorant in any area. I don't need to be an expert in everything, but I like to know something about everything. So I'm always staying informed and consuming that type of content. So, recently I asked myself the question, hey, when did humans start cooking food? So I looked this up, and I ended up on this video about human evolution, and also a video about cooking food, and which I'll review as well. And every time I listen to scientists talk, especially paleontologists, archaeologists, just people who go into the past, I always ask myself, man, do I trust these people? So much guesswork, so much nonsense. Let's review.
Yeah, absolutely, it's part of the story. But Wales could be making this show if it was just that. I'm Ella Al-Shamahi. I'm a paleoanthropologist, an evolutionary biologist, and I'm the presenter of Human. We
Pretty lady.
Were not
sort of. She's got crazy eyes.
Destined for greatness. And I think that shocks a lot of people. A lot of people think that we were the new kid on the block. As soon as Homo sapiens turned up, it was game over for all the other species. And let me tell you, it was not game over for all the other species. The evidence kind of alludes to potential showdowns with the other species. Potential, it's still very controversial. And us not necessarily succeeding. For example.
So I really appreciate someone being able to speak in layman, speak in a way where the regular person understands what you mean. But at the same time, when it comes to scientific talk, I really don't appreciate it. Sometimes I don't appreciate it because when she says potential showdowns, what's a showdown? What do you mean a showdown? You mean we're killing each other off? Isn't that kind of obvious, Doesn't everybody kind of know that and assume that? I mean, humans today that are the same species, it's the same species, we kill each other off. So I don't think she's doing a good job. In this whole video, I think to myself, I don't think she's doing a good enough job being specific and being clear about the science, just kind of spitballing and talking. And honestly, this is really unprofessional.
Around the same time, there was one cave that was filled with Homo sapiens, and there was another cave that was filled with Neanderthals. That basically means they were both living there at the same time.
Why? Why does that mean that? Why does that mean that? You see what I'm saying? The lack of specifics and the lack of scientific evidence, the lack of detail is just, you're just assuming that what she's saying is true. You're just taking her word for it, which I don't appreciate. She says, and I'm reminded back, but she just says, there was a cave, and in one cave there was Neanderthals, and one cave there were Homo sapiens. That means they were living there at the same time. Why does that mean that? How do you know that? Why does that mean that? And why does that matter?
The evidence kind of alludes to potential showdowns with the other species. Potential, it's still very controversial. Right. And us not necessarily succeeding. For example, around the same time, there was one cave that was filled with Homo sapiens, and there was another cave that was filled with Neanderthals. That basically means they were both living there at the same time. And it looks like only the Neanderthals continued living there. We quite likely became locally extinct. It's not a story of a species.
Or they moved away. Yeah, the thing is, I don't understand the assumptions. There's so many leaps in logic. She doesn't quite detail the timeline or the distance, really. How far away were these two caves? Yeah, how far away were the two caves? What's the distance? And what's the time frame? And how do we know that the Homo sapiens didn't just migrate somewhere else? What do you mean they became extinct? Or is that the same thing?
That turns up and is immediately brilliant. We had to evolve quite a bit. And I think we had a bit of luck on our side. You know that image of one species leading to another species, leading to another species?
that species is absolutely garbage, and this timestamp is correct. Evolution is not linear. Even if you fully believe the evolutionary theory, it wouldn't make sense for one thing to change into another. Like, things have to be birthed, expand, and then things die out slowly. Like, things just don't just change one to another. And one thing I want to point out too, look at the title of this video, the most misunderstood thing about human evolution. She is not going to answer this question. I think she's going to make a point that might be the answer to the question, but they're never going to actually say to her, what is the most misunderstood thing about human evolution? And she says, it is this.
I have a problem with that for two reasons. One is obviously, where are the women? The second problem...
Come on, bro. I know she's being tongue-in-cheek, but come on, man. Where are the women? Come on.
I have with that image is that it gives the impression that evolution is just really linear. So one species dies out, gives rise to another species, etc., etc. And we now know that is just not the case. Human evolution is so much more complicated, that there were loads of us living on the planet at the same time. Different groups were interbreeding. We actually only know the tip of the iceberg of how many human species are out there.
It's very important that she says things were interbreeding, because that is not going to come up very often. When you see skulls, they're not going to talk about whether or not these skulls are going to be mixed. They're just going to see differences in the skulls and call them different species. Where are the mixed skulls? Where are the interbred skulls? And what would that look like? Trust me, they're just not going to address it. It just doesn't happen. So you're supposed to be ignorant when you pay attention to scientists. You're supposed to be ignorant.
Since I've been a paleoanthropologist, we have discovered so many more species. Like, our family tree got a lot bigger in the last few.
Either that, or it was always the same, and you guys are just looking at subtle differences subtle variations within the human species. That's possible, Every subtle difference doesn't have to make something a new species. Hey, maybe it does. That's fine. But at what point does it become ridiculous? Borderline irrelevant?
Yes. And so it's funny that image that is so ingrained in people's minds when they think of human evolution is just actually quite inaccurate. Epic question. I'd marry the Neanderthal.
This is stupid. This is not science. This is not helping anybody. This is not teaching anybody. This is not education. And frankly, it's not even entertaining. Like, what are we talking about? Who would you marry? Talking about marrying a different species or marry something from thousands, hundreds of thousands, whatever you want to call it, years ago. What is this for?
This is kind of controversial, but I would probably avoid Homo erectus. They were kind of earlier, and therefore I'm assuming a bit more primitive, and I don't know how much I'd trust them. This is the one I'd make out with. This is not PG.
What do you mean you make out with it? Like, what? She just said it. She just pulled up a skull. She has no idea what that person would have looked like. Just pulled up a skull. Said I'd make out with them. I told you she had the crazy eyes. And remember the point she made about interbreeding? Why is that not coming up when she looks at these skulls? Why is she not telling us, this is how I know this is a purebred XYZ? She doesn't.
What I was about to say. This is Homo floresiensis, who a lot of us nickname the Hobbit after Lord of the Rings because they're basically about 1 meter tall. It's like the brain size of a chimpanzee. And yet it was bipedal, so standing upright on two legs, making stone tools. It had the behaviour of a human and yet is this size. And this is just, in my opinion, the most bizarre find. I just want to know them,
Or it could have been a child, but whatever.
Out session, you'd have a certain amount of time where you could chat. Just tell me about yourself. I suddenly realised that it looks like a kink. They're never going to be able to include this.
See what I mean? Like, this is goofy now. Look at the way this question is worded. Like, is this video actually like science for dummies? Does a big brain help survival? Why is that not worded differently for like an intelligent person to read? Like, maybe this is for kids, but I don't think it's marketed for kids. It's not marketed for kids. Does a big brain help survival? It's such a stupid question.
When people think about our large brains, they think that the size of the brain is what makes us brilliant. Truthfully, Neanderthals had very similar sized brains to us. Elephants, whales, they have big brains too. And yet, They're not watching this series. It's about the organization, in my opinion, of that brain. We seem to have a capacity to copy each other and learn from each.
More specifically, humans, as far as we know, are the only creatures on the planet that have the ability to think about our thoughts. You're conscious of the fact that you're thinking. Other animals think. Animals can remember, especially the more intelligent ones. They can even deduce. But can they reflect on their thoughts is the question. Can they review their thoughts? Can they practice things in their brain and then try them out? Like, they can plan things out, but can they do that over and over and over again? You know, the biblical people would call that the spark, the life spark, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. The ability to conceptualize the way we do. She calls it the organization of the brain. She's so vague about it. Listen to her speak.
Each other. And also we had the advice about the organization, in my opinion, of that brain. We seem to have a capacity.
What do you mean by the organization of that brain? She skips right past it. What is brain organization? What does that mean? And then she starts talking about organizing in groups and practicing things in groups. And the point she's about to make makes no sense because animals work in large groups all the time and they never specialize in things.
To copy each other and learn from each other. And also we had the advantage of many, many people. Look, all of these are theories, right? There was a lot of Homo sapiens compared to, well, for example, the Neanderthals. That means you have a bigger source of people inventing, copying, perfecting the technology. If you have 50 people in your group.
Yeah, but okay, you just finished saying that whales have large brains. Dolphins are very smart creatures. They organize in large groups. They don't build tools. They don't do the things we do with our brains. So the fact that we worked in large groups is not the explanation. You literally used an example that disproves your explanation, lady. That doesn't make sense. More specifically, you also said Neanderthal had a similar sized brain. So why did we survive and they didn't then? If it's, forget it. The question is about survival. We survived because we're something different. What's the difference?
You've all got to get really, really good at everything. Hunting, gathering, etc., because you've all got to work really, really hard to survive. If there's 500 of you in your group, suddenly you can start specializing. All of those people inventing, perfecting, and tinkering. Everyone's like, oh, it's our bigger brains. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, it's part of the story. But like, whales.
The idea that all of humankind was reflecting and thinking and specializing is nonsense. Nonsense. Most people are just trying to survive. And it's always been that way. You may discover things on accident, but like the idea that all humans were tinkerers. Okay, sure. Establish that. If it's true, establish it.
Could be making this show if it was just that.
Oh my God, another stupid question. How would you survive as a Neanderthal? Why is the question as a Neanderthal? She just explained that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens were living side by side, that us and them were living side by side. Why is the question about Neanderthal? And she's not a Neanderthal. And wouldn't a Neanderthal live the same way that we did? Like, oh my goodness.
I don't think we fully understand how hard life was. The Neanderthals were contending with some really, really cold climates. I would really struggle with that. Life as any kind of human.
Struggle with it if you were a Neanderthal. You would struggle with it because you're not a Neanderthal. You didn't grow up in that environment. I mean, sure, they struggled with it, but you wouldn't struggle with it any more than they did. You would be them. Like, you're not even answering the question. The question is, how would you have survived as a Neanderthal? And the way she's answering it is like, if she went back in time and tried to live with a Neanderthal, how would she have done it? What a stupid question. Instead of, hey, how did Neanderthals survive? Then she can just talk about the science of what we know about how they survived versus what we would do in a hypothetical. Like, this is why I don't trust science, because they waste time. They're wasting your time and treating you like an idiot.
Before agriculture was very, very difficult. That's why I always laugh at people that talk about the paleo diet, because I'm like, they were all dead by my age. The Neanderthals towards the end of their...
They weren't dead by... No, see, this is what I'm saying, bro. The same thing is true if you go back 100, 200, 300 years when you look at average death. The problem is infant mortality back in the day, even just a couple hundred, even just 100 years ago, 200, 300 years ago, infant mortality was extremely high. Extremely high. The hardest part about being a human is growing into an adult. More specifically, getting out of the toddler phase, getting out of the womb in the first place. So if you account for the fact that so many humans died in childbirth, died young, and died as babies. If you account for all the baby deaths, you account for all the women that died in childbirth, effectively what you have is, if you made it onto the planet, and like if you made it onto the planet and you were a male and you made it past like being an infant, you lived very long. You lived 70, 80, 100 years. You lived very long. If you were a woman and you made it, or a female, I should say, and you made it out of the womb and you made it past the infant phase, past the toddler phase, you lived very, very long, unless you died in childbirth. It's always been that way until disease started creeping up into us and this bad diets, and which started slowing down or lowering our birth lengths. The average human still lives 70 to 100 years. That's always been the case. I hate when people say, oh, we were dying at 30. Nah, like, of course, people could die at 30 in accidents and stuff like that. You broke a bone, it could kill you. You get a tooth infection, it could kill you. But that was so rare.
Time were just kind of riddled with diseases because of inbreeding. So I think if you had to be a Neanderthal, you'd probably want to be an earlier Neanderthal because, yeah, life got pretty bleak. I am quite moved by certain things about the other species. I have seen up close Neanderthal handprints. I can't even say that without getting goosebumps. That image that we have of the Neanderthal, that kind of like, I don't know, knuckle-dragging ape man, you don't imagine them putting their hands in red paint or red ochre to create these impressions.
Why don't you, like, why do we have so much of these preconceived notions about us being so special? Where does that come from?
Same cave, there were kiddie handprints. They're the kids of these kids. Like, that is something that is so kids. Like, that is something that is so us.
What does this question have to do with human evolution? See, this is what I'm saying. Do I trust scientists? Do I trust science?
I've been in caves, and we turned up to this one place where people literally lived in front of the caves that they were born in, and they actually still retreat to them during the monsoon. You just think, oh, if people were living in those caves like 20 years ago, that means there's probably really, really good archaeology in those caves. So I would say Socotra, just in terms of the science of it, just the beauty of it, and just how alien it looked.
Oh my, see what I'm saying? They're playing in your face. They're playing in your face. This video is like 10%, 5% science, 70% assumption, and 30% fucking around. Like, they're really just disrespecting you and playing in your face. Walk us through your prehistoric crib. Like, come on, man. Come on. I
appreciate it makes me sound like an idiot, but anyway. What are any of us looking for in a home, right? You want somewhere which is safe, protected from the elements. With caves, they come in all shapes and sizes. Oh, and the one thing you actually do want if you're going to get a cave is if it's like kind of high up and it gives you good vantage.
If you're going to get a cave, you see the way she said get a cave? Like, just ask the question more specifically, like, how did humans select their living spaces? What did they have in their living spaces? Why is it always about her? We don't care about her. Like, come on. And look at this face. Look at that face. That's a face only a mother could love. My goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Point on the landscape, because then you can be like, oh, you know, that enemy's coming, or, you know, Mary's coming. Good views. You know, just what you're looking for in a flat in London. In terms of things inside that cave, it'd be super helpful if there was like some running water. You want to be able to set a fire and not die from the smoke. So you want there to be good aeration. You also sometimes bury your dead.
Low-key, that's why teepees were so genius. Because a teepee allowed the heat to stay inside, but it also allowed the smoke to escape from the top of the teepee. Just a little fun fact.
Yeah, let's not go too far. Living and cooking in one place without turning into cemetery as well is the way I'd like to live personally. can't always admit to some of them, which is bluntly kind of annoying because it would give you some serious street cred. The one.
All right, I'm done. There's no more
So
science in
not
this video, clearly. So I'm gonna keep doing this, but again, ask yourself: do you trust science? Do you trust these scientists when they're clearly playing in your face and treating you like you're an idiot and not even answering questions directly? You know, it's crazy. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace.